The first signs of the Malcor invasion arrived quietly, like whispers in the dark. By the time Earth's defenses detected the alien fleet, it was already too late. Their ships hovered above the major cities, silent and imposing, a stark contrast to the chaos that had unfolded below. Captain Lara Ruiz sat in the command center of the International Defense Alliance, her fingers frozen above the holographic display. The Malcor had been silent for days, their fleet hanging above Earth like a grim reminder of humanity's fragility. No demands, no messages, just presence. "Captain, the Malcor are sending another transmission," reported Lieutenant Tanya Solis, her voice laced with urgency. Lara straightened, her eyes narrowing as she turned to the screen. The image flickered for a moment, revealing a tall, imposing figure. Its skin was an iridescent blend of black and violet, its eyes glowing with an unsettling green hue. This was Koru, the Malcor leader. The figure spoke with a cold, almost disinterested tone. "Humanity is a species of chaos, disorder. You do not belong here. Your existence threatens the balance of the universe. We have come to correct this anomaly." The transmission ended abruptly. Lara didn't flinch, though inside her mind raced. Anomaly. That was the word that haunted her thoughts now. She wasn't just leading a defense force. She was part of a species that, according to the Malcor, shouldn't even exist. The implications were clear. They weren't just here to conquer. They were here to eradicate humanity. For them, the very essence of who they were, their creativity, their adaptability, was a flaw. "Get me the team," Lara commanded, her voice steady. A few hours later, Lara stood before her hand-picked crew, a motley group assembled to tackle the insurmountable. They were humanity's last hope. 4 individuals from different walks of life, each bringing something unique to the table, yet none of them entirely convinced the others they were the answer. But they had no choice but to work together. Lara was the leader, pragmatic, strategic, and unyielding in her resolve. Years of military service had honed her instincts, and her ability to make decisions under pressure was unmatched. But this was something no amount of training could have prepared her for. Dr. Elijah Williams, the scientist, leaned against the wall, his mind clearly elsewhere. His scruffy hair and rumpled lab coat made him look more like a distracted professor than the man who was about to make history. Elijah's specialty was technology, the unbreakable logic of machines. His talents were necessary, but he often found it difficult to see beyond the cold equations. "We need a way to breach the Malcor's defensive network, get close enough to study their technology," Lara said, addressing him directly. "Can you do it?" Elijah's sharp eyes glinted, his lips curling into a half-smile. "I'll need time to reverse engineer their systems, but yes, it's possible. They're predictable in their structure. I just have to figure out where they made a mistake." "Don't count on them making mistakes," Marcus Wildcard Johnson interrupted, his deep voice cutting through the air. He leaned back in his chair, arms folded, a smirk playing at the corners of his lips. "These Malcor types are all about control. But let me tell you, that's the thing about control. It gets boring. And when things get boring, that's when I come in." The others exchanged glances. Marcus was a mercenary, hired to be a wild card, someone who could think outside the box. And that was exactly why Lara had brought him along. His unpredictability was both a strength and a weakness. But when things went wrong, and they always did, he was the one you wanted by your side. Nadia Kwan was the last member of the team to speak, her voice soft, almost dreamlike. "You all focus too much on structure," she said, her eyes distant, as if she were staring at something beyond the room. "The Malcor don't understand creativity. They never will. They see patterns. They see rules. But we see possibilities. They're not going to defeat us with their machines. Not when we can bend the rules to our advantage." Lara raised an eyebrow. Nadia was an artist, a philosopher, and someone who believed that the world was shaped not by logic or brute strength, but by ideas. She had a way of seeing connections others missed, but her vision was often more abstract than practical. "You're suggesting we fight creativity with creativity?" Lara asked skeptically. Nadia smiled, a gleam of conviction in her eyes. "Exactly. We outsmart them, not by following their rules, but by making new ones." The room fell silent. Even Marcus, who rarely took anything seriously, seemed to consider this. Lara was less convinced. "You're suggesting we make up the rules as we go?" "Not make them up," Nadia replied. "We just have to look at the problem from a different angle." "All right," Lara said after a moment. "We don't have the luxury of time. Let's figure out how to infiltrate the Malcor ship and gain access to their central command." The following day, the team stood before an old Earth spacecraft, retrofitted with the latest technology. It wasn't much, but it was their only chance. The ship hummed with life, its systems running smoothly, but its outward appearance was a reminder of how far humanity had come in the last century. Imperfect, patched together, but ready to fight. Dr. Elijah ran his fingers over the control panel, muttering to himself. "This won't be easy. The Malcor ships are designed to repel any foreign technology. But if I can inject a virus into their communication systems, we might be able to sneak in undetected." Lara nodded. "We need to get close enough to launch a proper attack. Once we're on their ship, everything goes to hell. We'll need to stay adaptable." Marcus chuckled. "Adaptable, huh? Just like you said. Don't worry, Captain. If it goes sideways, I'll make sure we all get out alive." Lara shot him a pointed look, but didn't respond. There was no room for doubt now. This was the only chance they had. The team prepared to board the vessel, a mix of nervous energy and silent determination hanging in the air. As they ascended into the craft, Nadia took one last glance at the city below, a world on the brink of destruction. "We can do this," she said softly, almost to herself. Lara didn't reply. She didn't need to. The mission had already begun. As the ship ascended into the night sky, the faint hum of its engines beneath them, Lara couldn't shake the feeling that this was a fight humanity couldn't afford to lose. The Malcor might have underestimated them, but humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its machines, or even its weapons. It was in its ability to adapt, to create, in the face of impossible odds. The encounter had only just begun, but Lara had a sense that, no matter what happened, they wouldn't be fighting alone. The journey to the Malcor flagship was long and silent. The makeshift crew aboard the spacecraft had their roles, but the weight of their mission was heavy in the air. The ship's interior was sparse, a reminder of the urgency and chaos of their rushed preparation. Lara sat at the helm, her face a mask of concentration, while the others were scattered throughout the craft, each preparing for what lay ahead. Marcus leaned back in his seat, one boot propped up on the console, humming a tuneless melody. "You ever think it's weird?" he asked, his eyes scanning the darkened cockpit. "We're flying into a ship that could blow us into cosmic dust in an instant, and we're just chilling." Lara didn't look up, but her lips quirked into a half-smile. "It's better than panicking. If we keep our heads, we have a shot at this." Nadia, perched beside Dr. Elijah, looked out the small window, her eyes soft yet distant. "What if we're wrong?" she mused aloud. "What if this is all futile? We're fighting against a species that's seen it all, one against every other race. What makes us think we can outsmart them?" "We're unpredictable," Marcus replied, his voice serious for once. "That's what they don't get. Every move we make, every decision, it's a wild card, and they can't anticipate that." "Exactly," Nadia added with a calm certainty, turning toward him. "The Malcor think in terms of structure, but creativity thrives in chaos. The reason they fear us is because we can break their systems with something as simple as an idea." Lara didn't respond. Her mind focused on the mission ahead. As much as she respected the others, she wasn't convinced that philosophy alone would win the day. They needed more than ideas. They needed access to the Malcor's heart, the central command where their power was focused. As they neared the Malcor flagship, a sprawling, organic mass that seemed to grow out of space itself, Lara felt the tension creep into her chest. It was a thing of nightmares, vast, dark, and constantly shifting. The ship was alive in ways that defied understanding, a complex fusion of technology and biology where the two intertwined seamlessly. The shimmering surface looked almost sentient, as if it were watching them. Dr. Elijah leaned over the console, his fingers flying across the interface. "We're approaching the outer perimeter. Cloak is holding, at least for now. Once we breach the perimeter, the Malcor will pick up on us." Lara nodded. "Do what you can. We need to stay undetected for as long as possible." The ship's cloaking device hummed, vibrating in the silence as it bent the light around them. It was the best Earth had, but even the best wasn't perfect. The Malcor were experts in detection, and it wouldn't take long for them to realize something was wrong. "We're coming up on a transport dock," Elijah said, eyes scanning the readings. "It's a possible entry point. I'll work on a way to override the lock and gain access." Lara's eyes flicked to Marcus. "You're on point. Get in, get the access, and move fast." Marcus gave a mock salute, his grin spreading. "Fast is my middle name. Just don't expect me to behave." Nadia looked out the viewport again, her gaze far away. "The Malcor are not like us. They don't understand dreams or creation or chaos. They think in patterns, but those patterns, they're about to get broken." "Don't get too philosophical on me, Nadia," Marcus said, his tone light. "Leave the big ideas to the professor." She chuckled softly, but there was a seriousness in her eyes. You'll see. The solution won't be found in logic. We need to get inside their systems, but we also need to disrupt the way they think. Lara turned her focus back to the task at hand, her mind already calculating the risks. Let's make sure we don't have to think too hard about getting out of here. Moments later, they docked, and the quiet buzz of the engines faded as the team disembarked into the alien ship. The air inside the transport dock was thick, alien, and pungent, a mixture of metallic and organic odors that made the back of Lara's throat tighten. The walls of the dock pulsed with an eerie rhythm as though the ship itself was breathing. Lara led the team down the narrow corridor, the walls closing in on them like the belly of some vast beast. They moved silently, their footsteps muffled by the soft alien material beneath their boots. Every door they passed was sealed, each entryway leading deeper into the ship's heart. It was both unnerving and fascinating. Elijah halted in front of a large organic-looking terminal embedded in the wall. This is it. If I can hack into this, we should be able to access their internal network. You have 5 minutes, Lara ordered, her eyes scanning the surroundings. Then we move. Elijah wasted no time, pulling out a small device from his pocket and plugging it into the terminal. The device hummed to life, and Elijah's fingers flew across the console, muttering equations and code under his breath. The soft light from the terminal flickered, casting shadows on his face. They've got a failsafe in place, Elijah grumbled, sweat forming on his brow. But I'm in. Give me another minute, and I'll have the system open. Lara stepped closer to the corridor, her senses on high alert. The air felt colder now, and she could hear a distant, rhythmic sound, something mechanical moving. The Malcor are near, she thought. Make it quick, Marcus said from behind her. I don't want to be here when they find us. But just as he spoke, the sound of distant footsteps echoed down the corridor. I've got it, Elijah called out, his voice filled with relief. The terminal screen shifted from alien symbols to a familiar human interface. We're in, Lara nodded. We move now. Stay low. Stay fast. The team crept deeper into the heart of the Malcor ship, their every step a careful dance to avoid detection. But as they reached the next level, it became clear that the ship was far from empty. Malcor patrols roamed the halls, silent, foreboding, and alien. Their bodies, tall and skeletal, shimmered under the low light, moving with unnatural precision. Nadia, her eyes gleaming with a mix of wonder and focus, stopped in her tracks. She reached into her bag and pulled out a piece of simple canvas and a set of paints. Without a word, she began to sketch. "What the hell are you doing?" Marcus asked, his voice a whisper of disbelief. "I'm disrupting the pattern," Nadia replied softly. "The ship operates in rhythm. I'm going to make it sing a different tune." As she worked, the others exchanged confused glances. Lara, however, trusted her. Nadia had a unique way of thinking, one that often didn't make sense at first, but always found a way to break through the impossible. In the eerie silence of the alien ship, the subtle hum of the walls seemed to shift, the familiar rhythmic pulse broken by Nadia's art. The Malcor patrols faltered, their senses thrown off by the strange, chaotic vibrations. And for the first time, the team moved forward, unnoticed. "We're getting close," Lara murmured, her eyes narrowing as she looked ahead, Keep your wits about you. We don't know what's waiting for us next. As they moved deeper into the ship, they had no way of knowing just how much their creative interference would alter the course of this mission. But one thing was certain. The Malcor had underestimated the power of human imagination. And now they were about to learn why. The deeper they went into the Malcor ship, the more it felt like they were navigating through a living organism. The walls pulsed with a rhythmic energy, shifting like the skin of some ancient beast as if the ship was aware of their presence. Each turn in the corridor revealed something new. Alien symbols etched into the metal, strange devices emitting low hums, and doors that seemed to open and close at random. Lara kept her senses alert, but her mind was on overdrive. The ship was far more complex than she'd anticipated, and yet she could feel it. A vulnerability in the system, one that they could exploit. The Malcor had designed their ship with cold, calculated precision, but precision was a double-edged sword. Where there was control, there was rigidity. And where there was rigidity, there was room for chaos. Think we're getting close to the central hub? Marcus whispered, his eyes darting around the dimly lit corridors. The shadows seemed to dance at the edges of his vision, making him feel on edge. I can't tell, Lara replied, keeping her voice low. But we're about to find out. Elijah walked ahead, his face tense as he monitored the systems from his handheld console. The central command should be near the heart of the ship, but the deeper we go, the more layered the defenses become. I'm bypassing their security, but I'm not sure how long we'll stay undetected. Time is a luxury we don't have, Lara said, turning to Nadia. Can you sense anything? Any signs of their central command? Nadia, walking a few paces behind, didn't answer immediately. She seemed lost in her thoughts, eyes distant. Then, without warning, she reached up and touched the wall, her fingertips trailing over the pulsing surface. Her lips moved in a soft chant, almost inaudible. I can feel it, she murmured. It's like a song, a hum underneath the surface. The ship is alive, but there's something more at the center. It's not just a machine. It's a mind. A very ancient mind. The group exchanged uneasy glances. The idea of the ship being more than just a vessel, more than just technology, was unsettling. But there was no turning back now. Suddenly, Elijah's console beeped, a sharp, digital sound that broke the tension. I've got something, he said, his voice tight. I'm in. The central hub's just ahead. It's shielded, but I can hack into their control systems and give us a window. Once we get in, it's all up to you. Lara nodded. All right, everyone. We're almost there. Marcus, stay sharp. Nadia, keep your mind open. We'll need your creativity once we reach the heart of the ship. With a final glance at the corridor ahead, Lara motioned for them to move. They crept forward, each step measured, the silence thick as a fog. As they neared the central hub, the air felt charged, electric. The walls around them seemed to hum with a low, menacing vibration, as if the ship was aware of their presence and was getting ready to strike. They reached the massive metallic doors of the central hub. The door's surface shimmered, waves of energy radiating outward. It was impenetrable, a barrier that no physical weapon could breach. Elijah stepped forward, his fingers dancing over the console in his hands, his brow furrowed in concentration. I'll have to override this manually. If I fail, we're trapped. Lara placed a steady hand on his shoulder, her gaze firm. You won't fail. We need this. He nodded, taking a deep breath as he connected his device to the door's interface. The tension in the room thickened, and Lara's eyes flicked to Marcus and Nadia. They were ready. They had no other choice. Elijah worked quickly, his eyes flickering between his handheld device and the glowing interface. Sweat beaded on his forehead as the door resisted his attempts, its defenses like an impenetrable fortress. His fingers flew over the screen, typing furiously, cursing under his breath. I need more time, Elijah muttered, frustration mounting in his voice. Marcus stepped forward, clapping him on the back with a grin. Relax, man. You're just making it look hard. Give it to me. Lara shot him a look, but Marcus didn't wait for permission. He tapped a few random keys on the device Elijah was using, as though he had some grand idea. His face lit up in the kind of manic excitement that only Marcus seemed capable of. You've got 5 seconds before I start blowing things up, Elijah, he said with a wink. Trust me, I'm a great hacker. Like a genius. Elijah looked at him like he was insane, but just as he opened his mouth to protest, the doors made a sharp mechanical sound and the shimmering surface flickered. The system was opening. What did you do? Elijah asked, wide-eyed. Simple, Marcus said with a smug smile. I just made it believe I was supposed to be here. Before anyone could respond, the doors swung open, revealing a massive chamber bathed in eerie greenish light. The central hub of the ship stretched out before them, an enormous spherical chamber with walls that seemed to breathe, and a massive core pulsing with dark energy in the center. This is it, Lara said, her voice a whisper of awe. This is the heart of their power. Inside the chamber, the walls seemed to close in on them, the very air heavy with a strange, oppressive weight. The core at the center was an enormous, swirling mass of energy, dark and dangerous. Its tendrils reached out like the hands of some otherworldly deity, pulsing in time with the ship's rhythmic hum. I don't like this, Nadia muttered, her gaze fixed on the core. It feels wrong, like a parasite feeding off of everything around it. Lara turned to Elijah. Can you disable it? Shut down their power? Elijah hesitated. I can try, but it's beyond anything I've ever seen. This is more than technology. It's alive. It's thinking. Nadia, her eyes alight with a quiet fire, stepped forward. We don't need to destroy it. We need to disrupt it. Just like I did with the ship's patterns earlier, we need to think outside their box. Elijah stared at her, disbelief in his eyes. You want to change it? No, Nadia said slowly, her voice soft but confident. We need to break its pattern. I don't know how yet, but I can feel it. The song that drives it. It's the key. Lara turned to Marcus. Get ready. We may have to fight our way out of here. Ready as I'll ever be, Marcus replied, a grin spreading across his face. He cracked his knuckles. Time to show these Malcor how humans do it. As Nadia stepped toward the core, her fingers trembling with energy, the rest of the team stood back. This was the moment. Humanity's greatest asset, its creativity, Its ability to adapt was about to collide with the heart of an alien mind that had once believed itself invincible. The Malcor had underestimated humanity's greatest weapon: its unpredictable, boundless creativity. And as Nadia's hands hovered above the core, she whispered softly, "Let's see if they can handle chaos." The core hummed louder, its energy growing more intense. Then, with a spark, the ship began to shake. The tremors from the core intensified, rattling the walls and sending waves of panic through the team. The once constant hum of the ship now screamed in discord, a pulse that seemed to reverberate through the very bones of the Malcor vessel. As the ship groaned, its internal systems began to glitch, flashing erratically, as though the mind of the ship was trying and failing to regain control. Lara's heart raced. "What's happening?" she demanded, her voice tight with concern. Nadia's hands hovered over the core, her fingers trembling as if she were tapping into something far larger than herself. "It's reacting," she murmured, her voice low. "I'm disrupting its frequency. The core, its mind, can't process the chaos. It's fighting back. But it's too late." The energy in the room grew more erratic, surging like an uncontrollable storm. Sparks flew from the walls and the floor beneath their feet buckled. The ship was resisting, its very essence, its life, fighting against the human interference that Nadia had injected into it. But there was a flaw, a crack in the system. "Shut it down, Nadia!" Elijah called, his voice strained as he frantically worked at his console, trying to stabilize the ship's failing systems. "If we don't stop it now, we'll destroy the entire ship, and us with it." Nadia didn't respond immediately. Her eyes were closed now, her expression peaceful, as though she were deep in concentration. The air around her shimmered with energy, and the hum of the ship became almost melodic in its desperation. She could hear the ship's pulse, like the beating heart of some great alien creature, and she could feel it faltering, weak against the disruption. Lara stepped forward, her voice urgent. "Nadia, we need to get out of here, now." "I know," Nadia whispered, opening her eyes. "But it's not about escaping. It's about stopping them from using it. The Malcor, they don't understand. This isn't just a weapon. This is their mind. I'm changing it. I'm resetting it." Lara's stomach churned. "You're playing with fire. If you fail—" "I won't," Nadia said, cutting her off. Her hands moved with newfound precision, her fingers skimming over the glowing surface of the core. The Malcor aren't used to unpredictability. They live in a world of logic and control, but chaos is what breaks them. As she spoke, the ship groaned louder, and the walls seemed to close in on them. The energy swirling around them became more chaotic, more powerful. Every flicker of light, every pulse of the core sent shockwaves through the ship's structure. "We need to move," Elijah said, panic creeping into his voice. "If she can't stop it, we're going to be caught in the explosion when this thing implodes." Just as the words left his lips, the ship jolted violently. The lights flickered, and for a moment, everything went dark. Then came a deafening sound, a blast of energy so intense it felt as though the ship itself were being torn apart. The walls shuddered and cracked, and for a moment, Lara thought they might all be lost. But just as quickly as it started, the shaking stopped. The room was eerily silent. The walls, the core, everything had stilled. Nadia stood still, her body slightly swaying, exhaustion evident on her face. The energy had faded, but the tension in the room remained thick, palpable. Lara rushed to her side, her voice soft. "Nadia, did you do it?" Nadia opened her eyes slowly, a small, weary smile on her lips. I think I broke their pattern." Elijah quickly checked his console, his eyes wide with disbelief. "The systems, they're shutting down. The ship is stabilizing. Nadia, you did it. It's like their central control just collapsed. The core's failing." Marcus let out a low whistle, his face a mix of awe and relief. "You didn't just break their systems. You gave them a brain freeze." Lara stepped back, her gaze taking in the now still core. The Malcor's invincible weapon, their mind, had been disrupted by the very force they'd feared most. Human creativity. It was a force that couldn't be measured, contained, or predicted. The Malcor had thought they were unbeatable, their perfection of control their greatest asset, but in the end, it was their greatest flaw. "They're not dead," Nadia said quietly, her voice heavy. "The Malcor. But their empire, their way of thinking, that's gone." Lara absorbed her words, the weight of their victory settling in. They hadn't just sabotaged a weapon, they'd shaken the very foundation of the Malcor's power, disrupted the one thing that made them terrifying to every species in the galaxy. The Malcor might live, but they would never be the same. "Time to leave," Lara said, her voice cutting through the tension. "This ship's going down, and we need to get out before we're part of the debris." Elijah nodded. "I've got a way out. It's gonna be close, but I can get us to the transport bay." Without another word, they turned and made their way out of the central hub. The ship was far from stable. The sounds of groaning metal and hissing energy echoed around them as they raced through the corridors. Every step was a reminder that they were running out of time. As they reached the transport bay, the doors opened with a hiss, and the team piled inside the shuttle. The view outside the ship was a strange, chaotic dance of light and shadow. The Malcor flagship was disintegrating, its once stable structure crumbling under the pressure of its own failing systems. Lara took one last look at the decaying ship. "We did it," she whispered. Nadia looked at the others, a smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "No, we did it. Together." The shuttle doors closed, and with a sudden jolt, they shot off into space. Behind them, the Malcor flagship erupted in a burst of energy, its once dominant form disappearing into the void. Days later, as they watched the news of the Malcor's collapse spread across the galaxy, it was clear that their mission had been more than just an assault on a ship. It had been a declaration. Humanity, with all its flaws, creativity, and unpredictability, was a force that could not be ignored. The galaxy had underestimated them, and now they would learn to fear what they couldn't control. "Here's to chaos," Marcus said with a smirk as he clinked glasses with the team. To creativity, Nadia added, raising her glass. Lara smiled, her eyes reflecting the same light that had ignited this victory. To the species that wasn't meant to be. And yet, here we are. As the stars twinkled outside the shuttle window, the team knew one thing for sure. The universe would never forget humanity's greatest strength, and neither would the Malcor.